What's going on, guys? It's Greg. So for today's video, I wanted to do a care guide on the Asian forest scorpion. This is my scorpion. I don't have a name for it, but yeah, that's him or her. Typically, this species has pretty simple care requirements. It doesn't need too big of a setup. Pretty simple care, and it's a good beginner arachnid. It is mildly venomous, but it is pretty mild. It's going to be about as bad as a bee sting, but beware if you are allergic to bee stings. It could have a reaction with you, so it could be more dangerous to some people than it is to others. Personally, I've never been stung by a bee, wasp, hornet, anything like that, and I've never been stung by my scorpion either, so I don't know how I would react, but I guess fuck it. Let me go show you his setup, and let's get started. So here it is. This is my scorpion setup. I'm housing my scorpion in a medium short critter keeper type cage. I'm not sure if it's a critter keeper or not. I think it's a different brand. It might be Exoterra or Zoomed. I'm not positive, but the dimensions are about 12 inches long by 8 inches wide and 6 inches tall. So this species of scorpion is solitary in nature. I don't recommend keeping any scorpion species together, but this one especially, you don't want to keep them together. They will fight, they will stress each other out, and they will probably eat each other, especially if there's a size difference. So this scorpion, like many others, is completely fine at room temperature, especially if your room is a little bit on the warmer side. They like to be housed at around 75 to 80 degrees. My room stays perfectly between there. If you do have a colder house, you might require a heating pad, but my room, since I have so many different light fixtures on in it, it always stays at the perfect temperature for this species. What you're going to need is a couple hide areas, a water bowl, some moss to keep up the humidity, and basically just a substrate that can hold humidity very well as well. So for the hiding spots, I just use this little half log, which I believe the scorpion's under right now. There he is. Let me put it back so we can go back to hiding. I do have about half the setup, a little less than half the setup, covered with magnolia leaves. It just gives some extra hiding spots for the scorpion. I do find him under there quite often. And it also helps with humidity. It could stay a little bit more humid underneath those leaves. Humidity, again, this species typically does well a little bit above room temperature humidity level wise. Anywhere between 65 to 90% humidity is comfortable for this scorpion. I find that I just need to spray down the tank about every other day with my little spray bottle of dechlorinated water. It's best to keep the water at room temperature. I just spray it down. Make sure the soil stays a little bit moist. So it is best to have a water bowl for your scorpion. I have this small Repti-Rock one. I believe it's by Zoomed. You want the water bowl to be pretty shallow so the scorpion cannot drown, but I also do have a small reptile sponge in there so the scorpion can drink from it, and also helps to guarantee that your scorpion will not drown. You know, this isn't required, but I prefer to use it. This is the kind of sponge you would use for hermit crabs, feeder insects, stuff like that. Typically, you can find them in the hermit crab section of the pet store. And it does retain quite a bit extra moisture, you can see that. So for substrate, I use Eco Earth. It's a coconut husk, coconut fiber substrate. Keeps in humidity fairly well. You want it to where it could clump together in small clumps, but then be able to crumble as well. And I do have some pieces of sphagnum moss in the corners to help retain humidity, and again, if it wanted to burrow underneath it, it can, but I typically find that it does great with a couple hides like this. So this species does burrow, but it doesn't burrow as much as other scorpions. You could keep a couple inches of substrate in there, but I find that it does great with just about an inch of substrate, maybe about an inch and a half, as long as it does have additional hiding areas. This scorpion can live fine its entire life in any tank between around 5 to 10 gallons. Or critter keepers also do well for this species because they don't really explore that much. They're nocturnal. I do find my scorpion crawling about its enclosure at night, but they aren't the most active. Scorpions tend to like to sit in one area and wait for their prey to come for them. They don't really hunt. I do feed my scorpion a diet of just crickets, and that is because crickets are pretty much the most active insect I know of. Again, dubia roaches are pretty active, but I prefer crickets. Any medium to large crickets are fine for an adult forest scorpion. I typically like to leave 1 to 2 crickets in there at all times. If the scorpion is hungry, it can hunt them down, or it could wait for them to come to it. Scorpions, especially the Asian forest scorpion, have a hard exoskeleton, so you don't need to worry about the crickets really damaging the scorpion. If the crickets are bothering the scorpion can easily just kill them and get rid of them, basically, so it wouldn't be a threat. You can feed your scorpion with tongs and use the tongs to feed things like superworms, mealworms, waxworms, but I find that that's way too time consuming to sit there and judge when your scorpion is hungry. I do find just leaving 1 or 2 crickets in there at all times helps the scorpion in the long run. If you did put a food bowl in there, there's no guarantees that the insects will stay in it, and there are also no guarantees that the scorpion will hunt them down. Again, the species likes to sit and wait for its food to come to it in the wild. And if you were to just put superworms and mealworms right in the enclosure, they will just dig, and it kind of defeats the purpose of trying to feed your scorpion. It won't be able to have access to them. So if you're keeping your scorpion in a critter keeper like this one, you do want to make sure you leave a top on it at all times when you're not watching it. That just guarantees that your scorpion will not get out. Most people do not want a scorpion loose in their house, and I do not blame them. It would be horrible if you find a scorpion in your shoe one day or on your bed. So make sure it does have a secure top on at all times. Especially if, like I said, if it's a short enclosure, because it can climb out of shorter enclosures, especially if they have air vents like this one does on the side. It could take a grip of them and escape easily if there's no top.